So why bother doing a life purpose coaching retreat for yourself? Here's the problem. The problem is that so many of us nowadays have bought into the idea that if we read enough of the right books, if we watch enough videos, if we go to enough seminars and or we get enough coaches, that we will find what we're looking for. We will take the actions we need to take. We will do what it takes to produce whatever success or connection or enjoyment, hey Gene, that we want. We just figure, if we just connect to enough stuff out there, if we just have enough things piped into us, and you give me as much as you can give me, and then this book gives me as much as it can give me, and this tape set, or no, we don't have tapes nowadays, but you know what I mean, this live stream gives me as much as you can give me. It's all going to work out. We just have to keep inhaling this information, just inhale the data, right? And so many of us are doing that, and I'm not saying that has no value. I'm sure having that kind of information can be very helpful, but the challenge is that no matter how much you learn, number one, you're probably not going to use most of it. Number two, you won't own it just by taking it from someone else. That's just, you borrow stuff. There's nothing wrong with borrowing. It could be helpful. But to get to an extraordinary level of achievement or extraordinary balance in your life or extraordinary personal relationships or extraordinary physical body or whatever it is that you're after, or all of the above, it takes more than just information. Having great information is helpful, but I mean, I was watching Tim Ferriss today, and he's a kind of a part of this group of people that are all about hacking life and hacking health and hacking performance. And hacking has gotten this probably a bad rap to some extent, but people start to believe that what we mean by hacking something is more about taking a shortcut. It's about making something easy. I gotta hack my title here. Let's just leave it alone. We'll just leave it at finding your life purpose. This is uglier, but it's more about what we're talking about anyway. So I'll just keep that up. But anyway, it's about shortcuts, right? And so he was teaching about, how you eat more protein in the morning and you'll lose 20 pounds in a month. If you run for, 5 minutes a day, you will get more gains in your endurance than if you run for like 5 hours a week or something like that. Just all these like shortcuts, right? The problem with those shortcuts is that you still have to do them. Taking 2 hours to do something versus taking 2 minutes to do something, it's just as hard. It doesn't matter how little time it takes. It's not just because we're busy that we don't do stuff. It's because we don't own it. Either we don't believe it's going to make a difference, or we're not motivated, or we're not excited enough about it, we don't believe in ourselves, or we don't believe in the tactic enough. There's all this disconnect that's happening, and until we make those connections, nothing happens. So it reminds me of when I made a decision to step into the industry that I've worked in now for 18 years. Life coaching, professional coaching, executive coaching, that kind of stuff, business coaching, and now training coaches and leaders from all different walks of Western life. And I've now worked with probably, 40, 50, 60,000 different people in a variety of different ways. Many of them, definitely not the majority, but many of them one-on-one as well over the last almost 2 decades now. And the reason that I found that as my life purpose, so to speak, other than having a great life and having a good time and having a great family and all the stuff that's kind of common to people, to enjoy ourselves and enjoy the carnal pleasures of life as well, the reason why that happened to me, the reason why I made that decision, the reason why I stepped into that world, in a really positive way, was that way back, this was in 1998, 1999, something like that, I was in music school. That was my life purpose at the time, and I thought I was going to be this amazing musician, and that was going to be what life was going to be about, right? And so I was in New York City, and my roommate was having just a lousy day. I think she had just broken up with a boyfriend, something like that. And we're sitting there together, and she's just like, I feel lousy. I don't want to go on living. I mean, the kind of, you can imagine the conversation, right? And so at the time, I had, over the last couple of years before then, I had been studying personal growth. I had been studying all the people that taught Tony Robbins, what he had learned, that he passed on to many of us at this point, that was making a huge difference for me. And I was really inspired to use this stuff for myself. But I was also, there was something about sharing it that really felt great for me. Just felt awesome. It was just something I really personally connected with. Not everybody connected with that, but I did. So, I really wanted to help her. And so I used something that I now call core transformation. I learned from Tony Robbins long, long ago that made a difference for me. And I took her through this process. I started talking to her about all the pain she was going through and the pain that would happen to her in the future if she continued to think that way and continue to take these actions, and on and on and on and on and on. I won't go into too much complexity of it because that's not the point here. We have a whole training on it inside of Master Coach University that our coaches learn so they can do this with people in their life and the people that they coach and the people that they mentor. But the point is, after about 5 minutes of this conversation, she just stopped crying, and she's like, I just don't want to go through this anymore. I want to, I'm not gonna, I just don't want to feel like this. And I was like, well then don't. And she's like, okay. And she puts a big smile on her face, and she's like, thanks, that really helped me. She gave me a hug, and she just went to her room, and that was the end of the night. And I thought, well, that was really nice. I got somebody to stop crying. I didn't know that I could do that, right? So it was really exciting, and I was really happy about it. I went to sleep that night, just kind of patting myself on the back, feeling good about what I had done. But it wasn't that big a deal, I just thought that's kind of cool. And then the next day, I got up, I went to school, and at Manhattan School of Music at the time, we had some steps that we would sit on I think it was 121st, 122nd and Broadway. That's where the school is located at the time. I think it's still there. It was the old Columbia Music School campus, and we were all sitting up on the steps and sitting on the wall, kind of this brick wall that overlooks the street, just waiting for class and hanging out and probably smoking cigarettes and doing all sorts of thuggish things that music school students did at the time. And so, we're just standing there or sitting there or whatever. And my roommate, I see her across the street. She's dressed up. It's cold that day. She's got her coat on, everything. Probably day like today, right? Except not so much snow, probably in New York. And she walks across the street. I see she's got this huge smile on her face. And she's walking towards, she's probably going to class, right? And she walks right up to me, this big smile on her face. She looks up to me and she said, I feel great today. And we talked for a second, and she went to class. That was it. I mean, it wasn't a big conversation. And I was like, wow, I did that. I actually made that difference. It wasn't just stopping somebody from crying for a second. It was something that lasted. It was a change for her. Thought the drug experience will end in a moment. All right, great. Okay, so we'll come back. So anyway, the point was that I realized that a conversation, just a simple conversation that I had with somebody I cared about, had changed their life for the better, and it lasted for more than 24 hours. It lasted more than just a day. And I thought, that's going to be a cause set into motion. That is going to be a something that will create a domino or a butterfly effect for this individual, that could change their entire life. If nothing else, it really made a difference for, at least the next couple days, and how she felt during a really tough time for her. It's a young person having a breakup. It's like, if you've ever gone through that when you're young, it's like the end of the world, right? It doesn't just feel bad. It feels like you're dying, or like life is, never going to be as good as it was when you were together with that person. So really made me realize that it really made a difference. And I felt so powerful by having the ability to help, but I also felt so connected with with the difference that was made and that person and a level that, normally I would only feel with like a family member or a really close friend. And which was great. But then there was this little voice inside, and you could call it God or, believe that, the universe or my subconscious or whatever. But there was a part of me that said, uh, this is what you should be doing. This is what you were meant to do. And, that voice was something that was so resonated with me that I started to project into the future. Have you ever done that? Like you got a feeling, but it wasn't just about the moment. You didn't weren't just reacting to the pleasure or pain of what was happening right now, but it was something that was that you thought of. You put yourself into a moment in the future, looking back on today as being the start of that, as being the start of that movement or that experience. And it's like you're projecting. It's like you can see the future. You can see your life. You can see your purpose, so to speak. And that happened to me that day. And I'll never forget that day. And I don't even think my roommate has any clue that this is what happened. I mean, I don't talk to her now, obviously. I could probably reach out to her and thank her for that experience. But I had many more experiences like that before I actually stepped into this professionally. And and then in 2000, I actually went to work for Tony Robbins as a life coach or as an executive or business coach, all the above, right? And I charged forward with that. I was really intense about it, way more intense than a lot of people that were doing that at the time, because I had already made that connection about this thing, about this life's purpose. I'd already made that connection in my own mind's eye, in my own heart, in my own soul, right? I already found that life purpose. So why did that happen? Like all the action I took after that to do this, to do what I do now that I love to get to do. I get to talk to you right now in this way. I get to work with my clients in this way. What actually had that happen? Although you might say, well, that was just an accident. The truth was I had to make some very deep connections in my mind to get myself so excited, so motivated, so connected to not just feeling good about today, but feeling so good about what it was going to look like in the future to be able to do that again and again, the kind of that positive addiction, if you will, that I said that it created a level of motivation that I would never have had that not occurred, right? And so a friend of mine on Facebook, they wrote the other day, it's all about action, and people talk about visualization and the law of attraction, and that's all bullshit. This is about action. You got to take action. I take a lot of action, and that's why I get my life the way it is. And I agree with that. It is about action. There's no doubt. But I would not have taken the kind of action I have taken over the last 20 years to get to where I am today. Get to do what I loved, get to make money doing it, get to do it wherever I want to do it, and be really respected and appreciated and connected to the community of individuals that make that kind of difference as well and mentor them as well, if I hadn't connected the dots at that moment. So yes, the action was important, but I wouldn't have done anything had I not made that connection. So I responded to him. I'm going to read. This is my post that was kind of inspired by my by his little tirade on Facebook. And I said, most people spend zero time planning, goal setting, visualizing the future, etc. And most people take very little growth-oriented action. So most people don't do either. Most people don't plan or connect the dots for their future and their purpose. And most people don't take much action either. They don't do anything. They don't do either of those things. But a goal without action is a dream. We know that very well, right? But action without a goal is aimless. Action without a goal is aimless. So you could take a lot of action, but you could just, in fact, you might be watching this and might think, I take tons of action and I'm not getting the success I want. I'm not achieving what I want. I don't feel the way I want to feel. I don't have the life that I want yet. It might be because your action is somewhat aimless. It doesn't have a target. And by the way, even if you say, well, no, I'm doing this for this reason and I've got these targets and everything, maybe they're not your targets. Maybe there's somebody else's targets that you're trying to please. Maybe they're targets, maybe it's not a target of things that you want, but things that you're afraid of, things that you're trying to avoid. Like trying to avoid being broke. I'm not trying to avoid losing this person in my life. I'm trying to avoid these people rejecting me, right? It might be something you're trying to avoid rather than gain. Or it's something that maybe you're just not authentically caring about, even though you're taking a lot of action. So no wonder it's not for you. So action without a goal is aimless. And I think a lot of people take a lot of action. They work really hard, but they're very aimless in terms of where they're really going, that they care about, that they actually want. So yes, you need both to have the results. This is just what I'm reading this. Yes, you need both to have the results. The misconception people have around this comes from the amounts of each required. So out of 365 days in a year, putting 1 to 2 days into planning and goals is plenty for most situations. In other words, if you simply took New Year's Day and the next day, the first or the second, or the New Year's Eve and New Year's Day, and you planned out and kind of connected the dots for your life purpose and figured it all out for the year, that would probably be plenty. It'd probably be plenty. 1 to 2 days on this is plenty for 99% of humanity. Putting several hundred days of action, 200 to 300 or more, is necessary for most extraordinary results. So you need a ton of action, no matter how much you're clear about your purpose, for most extraordinary results. Maybe not for all, but most extraordinary results that are above and beyond what most people will ever achieve. There's a lot of time that has to go into that, generally speaking. Or even if it doesn't take a lot of time, it usually takes a lot of gearing up and hyping up and motivation and time kind of planting the seed psychologically for you to build up to get to the point where you take the one action that really makes the difference, right? So that's necessary. So try putting 1 or 2 days of action in for your goal, your purpose, and see what happens. Nothing happens. Even 30 days of action leads to almost nothing. You'll get something probably out of 30 days, but it's very little. It's nothing compared to what you probably want to put in or want to achieve. Let's put it that way. So it's a hollow victory. It's like, hey, I got one client, or hey, I got that one job, or hey, I got one date, or hey, I built this one muscle, I lost 5 pounds. It's like, it's just not enough. And in fact, all the trouble you put into that 30 days is demoralizing. It's like, why bother? I don't even want to do this anymore, because I put in 30 days. I gave it what I thought was everything I had, and it's still not enough. I'm not even close to where I really want to be. And so that can actually be counterproductive. So check out the ratio here between like planning and envisioning and setting purpose and working all that out in your head to own it, and taking action. The planning is like 1 or 2 days in a year, and the action is like 300 days in a year. 300 days in a year. So that's why I think a lot of us focus very much on action, because there's so much more of it that it takes, which I can appreciate, but then we ignore the 1 or 2 days to plan. It's like, I got to set my planning retreat now that we're coming around New Year's, and it's like, I don't have any time for that. I'm so busy taking action. I'm so busy talking to you. I'm so busy marketing. I'm so busy advertising. I'm so busy managing my team. I'm so busy making payroll and blah, 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 blah. Right? That's every bone in my body says, don't do the planning retreat. But it's only 1 or 2 days. I spend 300 days working, and then what am I going to do? Nothing on the planning? That's what most of us do. And so it's really, it misrepresents the facts when we say it's all about action. It's almost all about action, but that other 1%, that other 0.5% of your time going into planning, going into goal setting, going into envisioning the future, creating a vision, figuring out your life purpose or your business's purpose or your relationship's purpose or whatever that is, that's the other 1 or 2% or less. But if you don't have that, you just go around in circles. And you go around again and again and again, and you keep hitting a wall, or you keep getting frustrated, or you keep finding this, you end up in the same problem you had before, again and 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 again, and then you die. And you call that a life. Well, it was a good try, but there was no planning in that. hey, if you just put a couple hours in, it would make a difference, but probably takes about a day. So that's the misconception, I think. The ratio between planning time or goal and vision time and execution time is like 300 to 1. It's real it's misleading. They're both absolutely needed. There's some little things that you got to do. And if you don't do those little tiny things, it's like all the other work is for naught. Coming back to music school, it's like I spent 5 years all the way up to the point where I did my graduation recital and all that kind of stuff, and then I didn't send in my tapes, that one last little thing I needed to do, and so I didn't get my degree until, like, I think it was like 7, 8 years ago, where my coach said, you don't seem to finish things, that last little 1%. And I realized that was my whole life was like constrained by that 1% thing that I didn't do, the one thing I wouldn't do, I wasn't following through on. And I said, I got to turn this around. And then if you look back, I got my degree finally. But it was only after I did the 1/300th additional, the additional ingredient in the pasta or the additional ingredient in the cake to actually make the cake. I had to have that one little tiny other thing. So for you, you might be doing a ton and still not getting where you want to go. It might just be that 1%, that little tiny thing that makes all the difference in the world. I don't know. But what I'm saying is for most of us, chances are for you, I mean, I talk to clients that are high earners, very successful people, the top people, in the world in terms of their career or their life or the area of expertise that they work with, something like that. And like almost none of them will take that 1 or 2 days out of a year and spend some time in a strategic planning or visioning retreat. They just won't do it. They'll go to a seminar, they'll read a book, they'll listen to their coach, they got me, but they won't listen to themselves, right? So it's that tiny little thing that makes all the difference. So the ratio is misleading, but don't let that make you think that you don't need to spend the time to work things out and plan it for yourself, not with somebody else, not with me yelling at you or Tony Robbins yelling at you or some tape setter. Again, I'm old school, I think about tape still, but some program that you bought on the internet, something like that nowadays. Like that stuff, it's great, but it's not going to make the kind of difference that this little 1% does. So yeah, we need both, but the action is generally harder and less likely. So if you need to concentrate on one, I'd pick the action side. I did admit that in here. But today, I'm not talking about action. I'm talking about what precedes the action, finding your life's purpose. And way, way back, when I had that moment of genius where it said, this is what you were meant to do, and I connected it with my future and I found my life purpose, I got lucky on that one. I was just searching around for stuff. I didn't have a retreat that I had planned, but I had to figure that out. Most people, they never have those moments, or if they do, they ignore them and they don't anchor them in. So what do you need to do in order to find that life's purpose and anchor it in so that it sticks? You got to go on a one-day retreat. You got to get out of town. You got to check into a hotel or go to a campground or something like that. Decompress. Turn off your phone. Turn me off. Turn Tony Robbins off. Turn all the, get rid of all your books. Just no more information for at least a day so you can consolidate everything you've learned and felt and connect the dots with what matters to you most. That's a huge chunk of finding your life purpose, is to shut everybody else up, to shut everything else off. And nobody likes to do that. Or it's not easy to do that at first, or we don't seem to have time to do that. But if you've got 300 days to work, you got one day to do a retreat. So that's the key, in my experience and my opinion, to finding your life's purpose, is take that retreat. If you haven't done it ever, then this is the perfect time. And by the way, to guarantee that you do it, all you got to do is shut me off and go on to Expedia and then get a reservation for one night in a hotel. Once you get the reservation, it forces you to, you've got to leave. You got to leave town. You got to check into the hotel. You get up the next day. You do your retreat. Use all the amenities and have a great time. That's it. Now I'm going to send you I'm going to actually chat you a video that covers how I run these retreats for myself. And I'll share that at the end of this. What about this year though? How do you, okay, so let's say you know what your life purpose is. You've already figured that out. How do you find this year's purpose? Well, what I've found is that for my clients that I work with that already know their life purpose, they already are on, not on track with that, but they're on purpose. They understand what their purpose is. There's also a not as much of a macro side. There's a more micro uh, uh, level of purpose that you need to know what it is, which is what's this year really about? What does this year need to be about? And by the way, you probably already have an idea, but you may not be conscious of it yet. You may not have owned it yet. You may not have planned it out yet. You may not have decided this year's purpose yet consciously. So then, same thing, take a retreat and find this year's purpose. I do this every single year, pretty much every 18 months or so, to find out what is the purpose of the year. And I got to work that out. And I do it during the retreat. Not because I don't know it now. If anybody asked me, I would say, look, next year is about getting my book published, getting the funnels straightened out, making sure that I have enough content, to make sure that I'm driving enough traffic and I'm keeping people on my email list satisfied and happy, so that the content thing is pretty much handled. And I know I also need to make sure that I'm optimizing my traffic and my advertising. Like, I know there's, what is that, like 4 or 5 things, right? But I go on the retreat so I can turn that into something that I don't forget, that I don't get off track with when I like actually have time to execute that stuff. So that's finding this year's purpose. And it's the same thing. You go on your retreat, you're going to find this year's purpose. What about setting this year's goals? You might need to know the purpose of this year, but maybe you don't know what the goals are yet. Maybe you don't know what you need to accomplish in order to fulfill on that purpose. Well, you might have a good idea, and I can't tell you what it is, and frankly, nobody can tell you except for you. That's why you've got to go on that retreat and take some time to set this year's goals. It's the same thing. You find your purpose, you set your goals, and you set this year's goals on the retreat. You don't do it on a seminar. You don't do it with your coach watching. You don't do it by reading a book or going through some home study course. Those will all help, and I'm not saying don't do that stuff. I'm just saying there's a point where you got to forget about all that and then walk into who you are and take ownership of the parts of that matter enough to you, that they were worth remembering, that you were so excited about, that you were so committed to, that you were so confident about, that were so unrelenting in their ability to keep your attention and catch your spirit, that you said, that's going to be one of my goals this year. That happens on a retreat, not when you're at a seminar. And then finally, the strategy. Once you know what your goals are, you got to set that strategy, right? So what have we done? By the way, let's back up just for a second. So on your retreat, what are you going to do? You're going to find, if you haven't found your life purpose, you're going to do that. But then you're going to decide on the purpose for the year, right? Then you're going to decide on the goals for the year. And then you're going to decide on the strategy. And the strategy would be, what does it take to achieve those goals? And you don't necessarily have to know everything about that, but whatever you do know, it'll pop up into your head at that point, and you write it down in your journal, or you put it on your outline, or you put it in your flow chart, or whatever you got on your retreat, right? But it's not somebody else feeding it to you. You've already been fed. Now it's a matter of taking what you've what you've eaten and digesting it, turning it into nutrients, real usable data, real usable information, real knowledge that's going to support you on your strategies. They're going to take you to achieve the goals. They'll allow you to fulfill your purpose for that year. That'll create the ultimate journey to fulfill on your life's purpose. That's the last piece, the strategy. That's it. So if there's one thing I could wish for you, especially if you haven't done this, it would be to go on a strategic vision or a strategic planning retreat before the year starts, before the year ends, or before things really get going. And the way to do it is simple. You just get a reservation for a hotel. Check, then you've got to pack your stuff that day, and during the afternoon or evening you travel to your hotel. It doesn't have to be that far. It just shouldn't be where you live, where all the kids are, where all the businesses, where all the telephone calls are interrupting you, blah blah blah, right? And you're gonna get to that hotel, and the first night you're gonna decompress, and when you wake up in the morning, You don't go on Facebook or YouTube or Netflix or Instagram or whatever you watch. You're going to turn all your devices off, and you're just going to get your journal out and all the notes you've taken this year at all the seminars and home study courses and stuff that you've been doing. You're going to take whatever you need to put in front of you. You're going to capture all of it. You're going to prioritize what's most important in terms of the purpose and goals for that year or your life if you need to. And then you're going to plan a strategy for it. And that's what I'm going to do. Before this year really gets started and I start teaching again, I start doing all the stuff with my clients, what I'm going to do is I'm going to check into that hotel, I'm going to decompress, I'm going to capture everything that I had from the last 18 months or so. I'm going to organize and prioritize it. I'm going to organize and prioritize it. And then it's going to be in an outline that I can use. And I could even throw that outline away after that because it's going to be so deeply embedded in my heart, in my spirit, in my soul, in my mind that I won't forget it. And I'll execute naturally and almost automatically on that because I programmed my subconscious to be going after those things that I spent a day or two to figure out in my mind. That's it. That's all it takes. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you a couple links. If you're on YouTube or Instagram right now, live at least, then I can't give these to you quite at this moment because I've got you on different devices. But I'm going to give you a link to a video that actually will give you directions on generally how I'll do these retreats. And this video covers a couple kind of New Year's resolutions. So you want to skip forward to 3 minutes and 50 seconds into the video. And it's going to cover more detail than I covered here about strategic vision and strategic planning retreats. I'm also going to, and again, if you're on YouTube or if you're on Instagram, come to YouTube because I'll put all of these in the chat or in the description in the YouTube video later once this is published. I'm also going to give you all of my links to my business planning videos. This is where when I run business planning retreats for organizations as a business coach, these are the 3 steps that we go through. And you don't necessarily have to go through these steps. I do personally. Most important, you don't even have to do it you don't have to do this right. Just do it. Just spend a day. It may not be groundbreaking the first day, the first time you ever do it. But after doing this for like 2 or 3 or 4 years, it will change your life. It will change your business. It will change your future. So if you really want to get nitty gritty about how I tend to do this, check out those videos, feel free, but you really don't need to. Finally, also, again, if you're on Instagram, come over to my bio, and there's a link in the bio to my YouTube channel, and this will give you notifications for these videos in the future. And hey, Jenny, you missed it, but watch it on the replay. And then also, if you're on Facebook, I'm going to give you a link to my YouTube subscribe link. You got to make sure you hit the bell notification on that, by the way, if you want notifications on your device or whatever that I'm going live or that I've got a new video coming out. That said, also join our Facebook group, and I'm putting that link in Facebook right now as well, because I will share these replays on there, and then if you want to check out more specifics about what we do, check out the blog. So hope this helped, and if you have any questions or comments or thoughts about doing your own strategic vision retreat, your own strategic planning retreat for yourself, let me know. But the point I wanted to give you here, the most important point, is that some of us get lucky and we just find ourselves, right? We just find our purpose, we find our life, we find our goals, or they find us, But for the rest of us, we come across so many different things and we explore so many different things in life, but we never bring them home to what it really takes to make a life change, what it really takes to create the life that we want. And the reason we don't is we don't take the time to do that. We're so caught up in our kids and our self and our health and our businesses and our jobs and our relationships, and we're so busy trying to toe the line. Our life is so full of really wonderful stuff, hopefully, some not so good, but hopefully a lot of good stuff. It's too full to actually make any change. And so we just live out the same life on replay over and over and over. It's a Facebook Live replay until you die. And don't let yourself be that person. I don't want to let myself be that person. I've got plenty of issues. I got plenty of things that I know I wish I was doing better, but I also know that I can connect the dots with the changes that are needed for me in my life and my business and my relationships, my health and my body and my longevity and all that stuff. If I just take a day or two and I really reprogram myself, just by not by like some fancy NLP stuff, just by like capturing what matters, prioritizing it, because I know what's most important in my own mind, and then organizing it so it makes sense to me. And if there's one thing I could hope for you or wish for you for this year as it comes up and as we get into it, it would be that. I hope you do it. I hope you try it. And if you do, or if you have any questions about it, feel free to hit me up in the chat. But if you do try it, if it makes a difference, let me know. Let me know what kind of difference it made. Let me know, what kind of breakthroughs you had or what kind of challenges you had for that matter as well, because it's not without its challenges. I mean, it does take time and it can be confusing at times to go through this, but it's those that actually do it that actually lead the rest of us who don't have that vision. You want to lead other people, you want to help other people, you want to make a difference for them, you got to start with you. You got to put the mask on you before you put your mask on your kids or whatever. And that mask for us is planning it out and then taking action on it. Yes, no doubt. It's going to take a lot of action as well. So I hope this helped. If you like this, like it. If you didn't like it, I'm sure there's functionality on YouTube and Facebook and everything else to give me some, throw some shade our way, my way. I think that's the term of art nowadays for it. And let me know if you have any questions, anything that you can add to this as well. And I look forward to talking to you next time.